Hello there, and thank you for staying tuned to LTN. It's quite a chilly day here in Nairobi. Nonetheless, we'll continue with our programming. You are now watching Global Watch. First, let's take a look at what's coming up right ahead. US and China inch closer to a trade war following Trump's battle of tariffs.
Both the US and China back in April launched cases at the WTO. The US because of alleged Chinese intellectual property violations, and the Chinese against the then proposed US measures.
Rescue ship Aquarius and two Italian vessels carrying 630 migrants arrived at the Spanish port of Valencia. Korean Americans have expressed optimism following the Trump-Kim summit.
We look at it, so we want to make a peace, everybody.
Uganda government bans motorcyclists from wearing hoodies.
The basics of being on a bike are protection. We need helmets and the jackets too.
And in Zimbabwe, a record 23 presidential candidates will contest the upcoming elections.
The issue of the ballot paper. We want to know who is printing the ballot paper, where it is being printed. And when it has been printed, we want to physically see it.
My name is Eddie Nyadwa, and the program begins right now. And we begin straight with the US-China trade wars, where in the last 10 years, a marked improvement in trade between the United States and China, but Trump's battle of the tariffs is threatening that, and there are fears of an all-out trade war. The US is putting tariffs on $50 billion worth of Chinese imports. The president says that he wants a fairer trade with China, but Beijing fired back with a tit-for-tat response. It's published a list of 600 American products it plans to hit with its own taxes.
We need protection. Everybody's taking advantage of us. The European Union made $151 billion on us last year. If you look at, I told you about China, you look at Japan, you look at South Korea, you look at so many, and we help these countries.
It creates instability, uncertainty. It reduces, particularly uncertainty for long-term investors, private business, capital expenses, and these types of things.
Well, he seems to have a very poor understanding of what deficits are. He keeps insisting that he has a deficit with Canada when in fact that is not true. And in terms of China, it is not as simplistic as he thinks. There are over $350 billion a year that is being sold in China, but produced in China by US companies. That is also under threat. When you start putting it all together, what you have is actually a fairly even trade balance. China has only about $10 billion worth of things that it produces in the U.S. and sells in the U.S. So it's not going to be this one-sided idea that he has that he can sort of force doing this kind of bully playground idea. Plus, remember, he is not only at war with China, he's at war with the EU and Canada and Mexico, as well as a host of other nations, including Russia.
Well, he seems to see a trade deficit as somehow a loss of American income, which it isn't. The main reason, and he seems to see it as a sign of that others are trading unfairly, and that's not necessarily true either. The main reason why the US has a trade deficit is because it doesn't save enough, and that is something which his own irresponsible fiscal policy is only going to make worse. And in terms of the trading relationship, well, one of the reasons why there is such a big the US has such a big trade deficit with China, according to the official figures, is because there are many parts and components which are assembled into finished products in China and then shipped to the US. And therefore, in the trade statistics, they count as an entirely Chinese export. But in the case, for example, of the iPhone, which is merely assembled in China, the value added that actually comes from China is roughly about 6%. Now, that's an extreme example, but it tells you actually the deficit is smaller than he says it is. More importantly, a bilateral trade deficit with China in and of itself is not a problem.
Well, the question about intellectual property is a long-running issue. It predates the Trump administration. And the question is when China has American companies that operate, is it in some way taking information from them, learning about practices, learning about technology? Is it doing the same by trying to get into America and by some means getting technology from U.S. companies? But there's a proper way for addressing that, which is, for example, through the World Trade Organization. Mm-hmm. There's a proper way for addressing that, indeed, in talks with the Chinese. Let's be very clear here. The Trump administration is only using information or intellectual property as sort of an excuse. This is not a policy driven by that as much as it is by political considerations and by Trump's misunderstanding, fundamental misunderstanding about how economic trade works.
Israeli police are taking testimony from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as part of an investigation into conflict of interest case involving $2 billion purchase of German submarines. Police were seen arriving at Netanyahu's official residence and later confirming in a statement Police were seen arriving at Netanyahu's official residence and later confirmed in a statement they questioned Netanyahu for several hours, in which he has not been named a suspect. It was the first time he was questioned in a specific case. Netanyahu was expected to be questioned as a suspect in a separate corruption case involving telecom giant Bezek. And still in Europe is that the rescue ship Aquarius and 2 Italian vessels carrying 600 migrants arrived at the Spanish port of Valencia on Sunday following the Italian government refusal to allow those on board to land. Rescue ship Aquarius has been in the international waters since picking up migrants from a smuggler's vessels off the coast of Libya. Malta and Italy refused to let it dock, saying they cannot cope with more migrants and refugees.
We have food and water enough to keep these people 2 to 3 days. But this is not what we wish because it's overcrowded, people are sleeping in the deck. It is not comfortable at all. They are weak, tired, exhausted.
Let's remember that there are more than 123 children on the ship. There are reportedly people with very severe burns, people who are victims of torture and abuse.
I don't think the problem is Italy's or Spain's. It's not Greece's problem. The problem is Europe's. The decision needs to be put on the table of the European Council in a determined and strong manner with a sense of solidarity, meaning that we all can't look away while the problem is being resolved by whoever has it closer.
To refuse to allow 630 desperate people to disembark in a port of safety, it cannot be stated as a victory. It's shameful. Yeah. And MSF denounces any European government who is choosing political scoring of points above saving lives at sea.
We asked Europe to share the burden of the migration emergency and not to leave us alone, as has happened over the past few years. This gesture goes in this direction, therefore, I can't do anything else than thank the Spanish authorities who have accepted our invitation.
And in Greece, it's that the Greece government has survived a no-confidence vote in parliament over a deal to change the name of its northern neighbors, Macedonia. Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras had been accused of making too many concessions for the deal, which was signed on Sunday. Macedonia will now be renamed the Republic of North Macedonia, ending a 27-year dispute with Greece.
Our main objection is not about the name, it's about the Macedonian language and the Macedonian nationality that it's been recognized by this deal. And this is totally unacceptable from the Greek people. This is something that nobody in the past has ever accepted. There is no Macedonian language and there is no Macedonian nation.
When these Macedonians travel abroad, are they really going to introduce themselves saying, I'm a Macedonian of Slavic background and my language is Slavic and I really have nothing to do with Alexander the Great? These things are difficult to guarantee. Why didn't they pick another name, like America, for example?
For us, this government, the priority of our national duty is to develop the role of Greece in the region, to escape the crisis and to head towards growth in line with the whole region. No one wants a solution to this problem more than us.
And now we cross over to Yemen, and the UN Special Envoy Martin Griffiths arrived in the Yemeni capital Sana'a for talks concerning the port of Hudaida in an effort to stop the fighting between Iran-backed Houthi fighters and Saudi-led alliance.
We reject the war. We reject any fighting in the city of Hudaida. We want full peace to be implemented across the nation.
We, the residents of Hudaida city, want to live in peace and security. We don't want war. We don't want fighting of any kind. Enough is enough.
He is expected to propose that rebels cede control of the port to a UN supervised committee. Hudaida is of huge concern because 70% of Yemen's imports pass through the city's docks. The UN says fighting there will trigger a much larger humanitarian catastrophe.
We are very fearful that any kind of blockage of the free flow of humanitarian food, also commercial stocks of particularly food and fuel, could have a major impact on people who are already highly vulnerable.
Around 22 million people in Yemen depend on aid, and 8.4 million are at risk of starvation. The Houthis have been in control of the port since 2014, and it is a lucrative source of revenue for them. The Saudi-led alliance wants to cut the money flow and says it can do it quickly.
Parties proposed new humanitarian aid plans, aiming to make sure the external humanitarian assistance can access Yemen through Hudaida.
And now let's take a look at what the people are saying about the Kim-Trump summit. And Korean Americans in Los Angeles, Koreatown neighborhood expressed optimism following the summit between US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Following the 12th June summit held in Singapore, US and North Korean leaders signed an agreement that include, among others, the US ending joint military drills with South Korea, and also North Korea agreeing to complete denuclearization.
The biggest role is Kim Jong-un, because, South Korea and America have been trying to negotiate the peace since Kim Il-sung, but they didn't respond for this, matter. And finally, Kim Jong-un, the young generation, agree to move in for the peace. I hope this meeting go smoothly and finally make a peace treaty. And I know it's not easy and it's difficult, so it takes time, and we all need patience. 미팅이 잘 되길 바라고 앞으로 남과 북이 평화롭게 살 수 있었으면 좋겠습니다.
His father and his grandfather has a Korean War. They have experience, but this guy, Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-un has no experience. He's a younger generation, you know.
You know, I'm Korean American, but sometimes I visit in Korea. You know, South Korean people, they don't know about it's a hard situation. Right. But we are in state of America, outside of America. We look at it. So, we want to make a peace, everybody.
We visited last year China and Japan. We cannot visit North Korea.
Yeah. Hopefully.
They're our neighbors. I want to go.
Yeah.
She has a cousins. And
yeah, we try find the cousins. Yeah.
Her father hometown is in North.
If we get, we have the relationship with things, I'll go. Yeah, I'll definitely go.
Later on, if they are changed, we will go.
Yeah.
We're saving money now to visit there.
I think it's a time to open North Korea right now.
Yeah. It's time.
Yeah.
Still on the Kim-Trump summit is that US senators have expressed cautious optimism about the outcome of the US summit with North Korea, yet emphasized there is a long road to go before the meeting can be viewed as progress in the right direction. While Republican Senator Lindsey Graham said he's glad US President Donald Trump met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, he cautioned it remains to be seen if North Koreans will try to back out of any deal, warning that it will be a grave mistake for Kim to try to deceive Trump.
The message now is, let's try to find a peaceful solution. The military exercises being put on hold is fine with me. It gives us space. What would not be fine with me is to withdraw our forces from South Korea as part of any deal with North Korea. If Kim shakes Trump's hand and receives lavish praise from President Trump and tries to play President Trump, look what happened to Canada. Bad things are going to happen. The worst thing you can do to President Trump if you're a foreign leader is try to play him.
He and his father and his grandfather have consistently tried to starve their own people half to death and put those who disagreed with them in prison and tortured them. I don't know what else you call him but a butcher. Having said that, I'm glad the president and Kim met. I hope something comes out of this. But I've got to see it to believe it.
I mean, talk is always better than war. Diplomacy is preferable to military action. There is a long road to go before we can really say there's progress, because an agreement so far is lacking. What we have is a very vague, unspecific framework that maybe is a cause for hope, but hardly confidence.
If he's going to denuclearize, we have to be sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, because there are ways to hide, as we all know.
And now to some African continent news, and we begin in Somalia. The Horn of African nation has welcomed the visiting Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali. Since taking office in March, Prime Minister Ahmed has traveled to several African nations in a bid to strengthen ties and boost trade on the continent. Prime Minister Ahmed held talks and focused on regional security and development.
I am not here to laminate the past, but to open a new chapter, a new relationship, a new vision. The new frontier for our region, I believe, should be closer and full regional integration, where minds are open to ideas and markets are.
There will be no delay. There will be no disruption. Our fate is intricately linked. It's with this in mind that we must continue to collaborate and collectively work to defeat the current scourge of our region, terrorism and insecurity, and usher an era of economic transformation and prosperity for our countries and the wider region.
Egypt has been ranked the safest country in Africa, coming higher than both the UK and the US, according to a new poll. The Gallup Global Law and Order report placed the North African country at 16 out of 135 countries on its annual list, which measures people's sense of personal security and their personal experiences with crime and law enforcement.
What the Egyptian president did when he took over is to raise the budget for security and also increase the number of police vehicles roaming the streets. Even in the Sinai 2018 military operation, it was not only about fighting terrorism and securing the borders, it also concentrated on fighting crime and cracking down on criminals, not just terrorists. There's no doubt that there's a lot of development after the terror incidents in Sinai and the ones that also targeted churches in Tanta and Alexandria. And although there are challenges against the well-equipped terror groups in Sinai, the updated security systems and experienced police have kept the citizens safe in different areas of the country. The security presence in the streets has increased significantly with fixed or moving security checkpoints. They're also using more scientific methods in investigating crime, in addition to public support with the police to help secure the people. Egyptians are a positive people in that they react to violence, and that's why it's rare to find street violence or rape and break-ins like in other countries, because people in the street would intervene to stop it.
And now we cross over to Uganda, where a recent spate of murders in Uganda has prompted the government to ban wearing of hoodies when riding a motorcycle, even for the passengers. Uganda President Yoweri Museveni says the ban will make it easier to identify criminals. But the directive has attracted mixed reactions from riders.
Only a few people that have taken advantage, saying that it is maneuverable in this traffic that we have in our country, this traffic jam that we have in our country, and they've taken advantage of that to commit crimes and go away with it.
If government came back with what we call Ujama intelligence, Ujama intelligence is a program that involves the general public, that sends some powers to investigate to the general public so that they collect information, then government manages information that so many things can be unveiled. But if we are still doing the situation of saying CID intelligence is very different from the common person, then we still have a problem.
While regulating the border, I think the president should have consulted first. I have the freedom to wear what I want.
The basics of being on a bike are protection. We need helmets and the jackets too.
And now we end in Zimbabwe, where a record 23 presidential candidates will contest the upcoming elections. The vote is due to take at the end of July. 23 candidates is the highest since independence in 1980, has been described by political analysts as a sign of mature democracy and the opening up of political space by President Emerson Mnangagwa's new dispensation. Among those who successfully filed nomination papers include President Mnangagwa of ZANU-PF, Nelson Chamisa of MDC Alliance, Peter Gava of United Democratic Front, Albanagana Kwanale of Republicans Party, among other presidential candidates.
We have not moved away from our demand surrounding the issue of the ballot paper. We want to know who is printing the ballot paper, where it is being printed. And when it has been printed, we want to physically see it. If these demands are not met, there will be no election. And I would like you not to underestimate his resolve and the capacity to see through this position.
We invited all the political parties represented in Parliament. We discussed, we tabled in Parliament some of the key issues that we felt were necessary to achieve a free, fair and credible election. And those amendments were passed by Parliament. And you can see by the number of contestants that they believe that the playing field is level. Nobody would rush to enter into a playing field where you know that the rules are not there.
And now we cannot end the Global Watch without taking a look at some of the highlights of the World Cup Russia 2018. Here are some of the goals that Cristiano Ronaldo scored. He managed a hat-trick against Spain.
Ronaldo holding off David Silva. Ronaldo, is that contact? Yes, barely 2 minutes on the board. Gianluca Rocchi pointing to the VAR room in Moscow.
Well, here it is, Cristiano Ronaldo's first real involvement. Oh, I'm not sure. He throws the step over here with the right foot, and he's going past Nacho. Oh, yeah, that one there. You see it. He clips his heel. Cristiano Ronaldo's smart here. He dragged.
Check is over. We are being told Mark at this World Cup after 3.5 minutes, and he does. Will this be his World Cup? PK Ramos rather is back to defend. Ganis has it. Seen him do this so many times for Real Madrid. We know how well this ball knuckles. Couldn't get it over the wall that time.
Just doesn't get it up and over the wall here, right in.
Can Portugal build a counter? Bernardo Silva's touchdown. They've got numbers running forward. This ball's meant for Ronaldo. He's going to get there. Plays back into the middle, though.
Just a lovely little slip pass initially by Bernardo Silva. And how about that? Just bending it behind the Spanish.
Tucked away. Ronaldo again. Clever little touch. Play the outlet to Ronaldo. 44 for Portugal, they can go fast enough. Guerrero springs it down, he was onside. Ronaldo got himself back onside, it slipped through! A stake from David De Gea! Ronaldo's second goal!
Geddes picks it up, now Ronaldo becomes active and onside, and he smashes it with the left foot. And David De Gea, the huge mistake from David De Gea that allows Cristiano.
Silva went to the deck, as did Ronaldo.
Yeah, it's a foul, and that's another needless foul there, and you've given Cristiano Ronaldo, who hasn't had a sniff in this second.
Sitting on a hat trick, sitting on the European record for international goal. Window dressing. Ronaldo through!
And on that note, we've come to the end of Global Watch. My name is Eddie Nyadwa, and thanks for watching.